DNA Video Productions is a full-service video producer with a fleet of drones, 4K, and HD cameras, as well as a crew of video operators. We handle commercial and residential real estate videos, as well as events for promotional purposes. We create book trailers, both live-action and running stills, music videos, and website videos. We also film series shorts for online distribution and are currently involved in filming a political parody. We specialize in low-cost movie making. Call DNA Video Productions at 941-748-6865 or visit our website at www.dnavideoproductions.com. That's www.dnavideoproductions.com. Thank you. Our sponsor this month is Published, an affiliate of Village Voices. Published offers all author services from writing tips, critiques, manuscript evaluations, and editing, as well as tips to help you become published. If you prefer to self-publish, purchase the step-by-step book on publishing through Amazon, or purchase services a la carte, from formatting to creating custom covers, or even tips to gather endorsements. The staff is headed by 2 professional writers. After your books are published, either trade paper, electronically, or both, purchase marketing tips, web services, book trailers, or turn your book into an audiobook. Publish provides all your writing, publishing, and marketing needs. So give them a call at 941-748-6865. Contact them online at dgould497@aol.com or go to the website at www.publishedavillagevoices.webs.com. Good afternoon. Welcome to Culture Coast. Today we are interviewing Will Luera of Florida Studio Theater. Now, Lou, Will. Will, what exactly is it that your position is here at Florida Studio Theater?
I'm the Director of Improvisation here at the Florida Studio Theater, which means that I am responsible for the classes and the shows and the development of content using the art of improvisation. And so at this point it means both spontaneous theater, like we're all used to, but also sketch comedy and also musical improvisation.
Now, does Florida Studio Theater also put on regular plays that people don't improv? It's where they're doing just regular Cats or Hair or something like
sure.
that.
Sure, maybe not something as big as Cats or Hair. We're more of a contemporary theater, so you'll see the debuts, whether it's regional world premieres of various shows across our stages. We have actually 5 stages, and we have 2 main stages and 2 cabarets. And the improv show, FST Improv, performs out of the Bowne lab, which is our lab theater for more experimental work.
That's a good explanation of what you do, and Florida Studio Theater does a heck of a lot, but you say it's contemporary, meaning...
Every now and then we will produce some classics, but you'll see whether it's regional world premieres of new plays, and we have, for example, an annual new playwright festival where we get as a staff are exposed to a lot of new plays and new content, which we then can choose to produce and on our stages or recommend for production elsewhere.
Okay, so if it was a new show, more like off-Broadway rather than Broadway?
Probably, yeah. That would be, similar in that way.
Okay, so just so I have and the audience has some kind of idea,
right.
If they know what off-Broadway means.
Right, yeah, no, but
that's another thing. That's a very American thing.
That would be on the right track, though. That's
so it's not the big, huge productions that last for a year or two. Mm-hmm. It's the smaller ones that tour the country that came from off-Broadway, where they were hoping to head to Broadway and may someday actually get there.
Exactly.
Okay. How did you get started in this whole line of work? How old is there anybody else in your family? Did you start as an actor? Did you start as a writer? Did you start as a stand-up comic?
Good question. I started out as an actor. I always enjoyed performing, but I never really wanted to be a performer. I had a stronger passion in the sciences, and I actually went to school for physics and computer science. And to this day,
which are not improv at all.
No, right. And so to this day, I still have a very strong interest in the sciences. But while I was in college, I had the opportunity to audition for a show that required very little preparation. I didn't realize that show was an improv show. And so I went to the audition, I was cast, and then while I was in college, I was simultaneously studying physics and computer science and also developing my improv career through a series of shows. Then through improv, I was exposed to scripted theater, more traditional theater, and then eventually into musicals. And so from improv, I ended up going into scripted theater, and then that started off my theater career.
And we're back with Will Luera. So we left you back in high school, going into college, where you really enjoyed film, but you didn't major. In acting.
Right.
You didn't major in that. Did you minor in it?
Eventually, I got to the point where I took enough classes so that I could have what was a concentration at the time. They didn't have a minor back then, but currently so this was at Boston College.
Did you ever do anything with the sciences? Did you get your first job in the sciences?
I did. My first several jobs were all in computer science, and even up until recently, before I moved to Sarasota, one of my last jobs was working in the technical field. Because even while I was in Boston, I was working full-time in the arts, but with a part-time salary. So I needed to supplement that. I have a family.
So you were a starving artist.
Exactly.
And it was a hobby more than a full-time position where you could afford to support a family.
That's exactly right. So I needed to supplement my artistic income with what I studied. It's funny, many of my international colleagues, both in Europe and in Latin America, all the improvisers that I know are full-time improvisers or full-time actors. You don't find a lot of hobbyists doing improv.
Because other countries have a way of helping them live and excel in their chosen passion.
Right.
So that's really, it's a great thing in other countries. One of the things we don't necessarily do right, because as capitalists, we don't necessarily think of the arts as something that we need, but I think all of us need art in our lives for our souls.
Agreed.
So you go through college, and you get out of college and you take a few jobs doing regular, normal American stuff. Yeah. So you're doing the acting thing, and you want to be an actor. You've decided this, but you can only do it part-time, so you're willing to settle. You can't support yourself at it, so you're willing to settle for doing it in the evenings. Now, do you have a family yet? You just get out of college?
I'm just out of college. Almost immediately, I started to audition for... By the time I got out of college, I was already interested in both improv theater and scripted theater, along with doing commercial work, etc. And I was a little bit of success in that, doing voiceovers, doing commercials, doing some scripted work.
How do you find those kind of things?
Thankfully, in the Boston area, there was a resource called Stage Source, which basically consolidates all that information into one. Back then, it was a paper newsletter that you would get on a weekly or monthly basis then eventually became an email that you would get on a daily basis that would just tell you, here are all the things that are happening locally. I thought it was an amazing resource, and I wish that more communities had something like that. But that's where I got started.
It would be great to we have Minnesota Films here, which is a little tiny bit of that, but it could be so much. You would probably know this. How many studios, theaters do we have in the area? And I'm not talking about movie theaters. I'm talking about the Manatee Players, your Florida Studio Theater. There's a lot.
The Players Theater, the Urbanite, the Oslo, and then you go into the more specialized places like the Opera, etc. I mean, there are a few big houses here, the Van Ways. I mean, really big theaters. I love what the Urbanite is bringing to the area.
And we have comedy clubs.
And comedy clubs like McCurdy's, etc. And like having stages like that, I think is very important for a vibrant community.
We just got a new one, didn't we? The Starlight.
And the Starlight. Well, they're more of a bar, but I don't know if they're also doing. If they're going to start doing shows as well.
Yeah, they have already been doing shows.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good.
So yeah, and now they've got an opera singer, but she's not doing opera, she's doing contemporary opera.
Okay, and all that's great. Like having that sort of variety, I think, is important for a vibrant community.
And I think the Sarasota Manatee area, this Culture Coast space is just so full of it.
Right.
And it goes on and on and on. You came, I met you first at the Minnesota Films, where you were showing us something about improv and doing a little set in front of us and brought that up. How did you get to this position in Sarasota?
Okay, so I've been coming to Sarasota for the last 6 summers as part of the Sarasota Improv Festival. Florida Studio Theater produces what I feel is one of the best improv festivals in the country. They bring a lot of.
They're the ones that produce the Sarasota Improv Festival?
They produce it, yeah.
How long have they been doing that?
6 years.
So they started 6 years ago.
Yep. I mean, that's when the festival
What got them started?
Well, they had their own improv group, which started around 2001. They started out with classes, and then that were taught by Rebecca Hopkins, our managing director. And then those classes eventually led to a core group of performers, or I should say a core group of experienced students that then became weekly performers, that then grew into a seasonal improv show.
And now you've got a whole bunch of improv actors that you've trained, and so do you do a lot of those kind of shows here at the theater?
We do weekly shows. On Saturday nights we do shows that have a lot of improv games. I think what a lot of people are more familiar with, like from Whose Line Is It Anyway, or other more traditional, just very short 3 to 4 minute scenes where the audience gives us a certain suggestion and a certain set of obstacles that we need to perform around. But we're starting, and part of my vision for coming here is to expand our programming to not just be these games, but longer forms as well. So, for example, during the springtime, we were doing a show called When X Meets Y, which was a fully improvised musical. And everything was improvised, everything from the music to the lyrics to the situation.
How do you come up with something like that, where you've got a theme, and that's how it works, right? You come up with a theme, and then the actors just know what the theme is? And
I mean, in this case, the theme was, we knew that we were going to do a romantic musical. And that's all we really know. We rehearse through what that means, and with that, we rehearse through the tropes of a romantic comedy, of a romantic musical. Then we rehearse on what it means to improvise a song, right? Whether it's a solo or a duet or a group number, okay? And then that's all we really know. Then we get the idea from the audience. The audience tells us, okay, this is going to take place. And we had a cruise liner, a retirement home, a prison, a baseball game. We had a bunch of different scenarios. We don't know. We really have no idea where we're going to end up.
But are each of those little vignettes in each one of those scenes, or is it an overall the same? The romance builds.
Yeah, we have a basic, and this came from our study of romantic comedies, where we knew that we were going to have a couple of obviously our romantic our two love interests. And then they were going to meet, and then they were going to fall in love, and then there was going to be some heartbreak, and then they were going to come back together. Like that, we knew that arc was going to happen. How or who, we had no idea.
Okay.
And that's part of improv. And then part of what I feel of what improv is that, in my opinion, there is no difference between scripted theater. There is minimal difference between scripted theater and improv theater. I truly believe that improv theater can look as rehearsed as scripted theater. I think a lot of people think that improv should look sloppy, that it should look like it's on the edge of failure or on the edge of being being a mistake of some sort. But I think the best improv is the one that you can't tell the difference. You can't tell that it's improvised. When it looks like scripted theater, then you're doing improv right.
So, kind of like Robin Williams.
Kind of. It was hard to tell that his stand-up material.
Almost all of his stuff, even when he was doing some of the movies,
Mm-hmm.
he was improvising as he went throughout those movies.
Yep.
He was kind of famous for not following his script.
Exactly.
The movie might be scripted, but he wasn't
off
following
script. Exactly.
all the time.
And I think that's where improv is at its best. During our show, When X Meets Y, I would love it when people came up to me and they were like, "Oh, that song had to be improvised. Like you must rehearse the songs ahead of time
To make them work.
and then put them into the story." And audiences would be convinced of that. But no, we have no idea what the music is. We have no idea what the melody will be.
That's got to be tough, but it also makes your actors and actresses very adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
They can move with the flow, whether it's comedy, tragedy. It really enhances their acting ability.
And I think what improv ultimately is trying to achieve is that it keeps you in the moment and it keeps you listening to what's happening in the moment. I have a friend who teaches the traditional way. She directs the way that Shakespearean shows. She directs Shakespeare, and she directs them in the way that they were traditionally directed way back in 400, 500 years ago. And what that meant was that if we were both in a Shakespearean play, we didn't get a full script. We only got our lines. I got my lines and you got your lines. Okay? And so you have no idea what
you're going to say to me?
Yeah. And that, when she was telling me that, I'm like, that's beautiful. Because that, as an actor, would keep me so engaged. Because I have to listen.
How do I know when it's my turn to talk?
Yeah, I have to be listening to what you're saying in order for me to respond. And I think that's what I love about improv, is that you have to be listening. You have to be in the moment to truly know what it is that you have to say.
Okay. How did you said you were coming down here for 6 years as part of the summer program. How did you get this position, and when did that happen?
So then last year, 2014, was the 6th annual Sarasota Improv Festival, and I received, right after the festival, I saw that the Florida Studio Theater posted an announcement that they were hiring a full-time director of improvisation. And I had already been, as I said, I had been coming down for 6 years, and I loved it. My wife loved it. My kids loved it, and we were about.
Boston was really cold.
Boston was really cold.
Winters were getting worse.
Yeah,
and we were getting hurricanes in the summer.
So many things. We were kind of getting. Actually, the biggest part was.
Now, did you grow up in Boston?
I grew up in Chicago, but for me, the biggest part was what I described early on in the interview, is that I was essentially working 2 full-time jobs. I was doing my passion as a full-time job, and I was working another full-time job to support my family. And there's only so much of that a family unit can take.
Right, before you're cracking.
Exactly. That was the biggest reason for applying for the job. Obviously it was a very.
So now you're making enough money to support your family, and you're working at your passion. So it means that when you get up in the morning, you're happy.
Exactly.
And you love what you do,
Yeah.
so you come home from work and you're happy.
Yes.
And the family unit gets to be happy because they have enough money to live on.
Exactly.
And daddy's happy.
And then they see more of daddy. We have more meals together. It's all of the things that
a family should be.
Exactly. Yeah. And Boston is a very expensive city. Which is strange.
Sarasota's not cheap.
It's not, but there is. And we did our research before we moved. It was a 20% cost of living difference between Boston and Sarasota, and that alone was like, wow.
Yeah.
All the things, like you were saying, like all the dominoes just started to fall in place, and yeah, what I built in Boston, the theater I built, the community I built is fantastic, and I'll miss it, and I have a lot of dear friends up there, but
they can come down here.
They do, and then the opportunity to work in a great place like FST with the with the amazing infrastructure that we have. It was so unique.
So how long has Florida Studio Theater been in existence?
I believe, and I should know my history a little bit better, I believe it's been about 30 years.
Okay, here in Sarasota, doing just little plays. And
I think they moved from classical work into more contemporary work. I mean, but we have, I believe it's the largest subscription base in Florida and the third largest in the country.
That doesn't surprise me. We have a very strong artistic
Yes.
community in the area.
Right, and I think the management here has put together a season that our audiences want to come to. They want to come to support the theater. They want to
want to see all the movies too, not
Exactly.
just to help with the donations.
Right, exactly. And while I've been here in the last 8 months, I've just seen so many amazing plays that have been fun to watch as an audience member and inspiring as a staff member.
All right, so where are you going to take this program now that you're in charge of it? You're doing more than just camps now.
Right. A big part of what I want to do is to expand what our improv programming is beyond just the games, right? And I talk about this musical improv.
Yeah.
This week we're doing a show called We're Doomed, which is an improvised disaster movie. We
have lots of preppers in there.
Yeah. Basically, a lot of characters, a lot of proper characters, and and it's a staged film, so it's not like we're not projecting anything, but we are trying to stage the conventions that would be used in a disaster movie. And then in August, we're doing a show called Thank You for Being a Friend, and it's an improvised sitcom. And so
you're getting your people, your actors. Now, are they paid actors, or are they all volunteer?
No, they're paid actors, yes.
Okay. Now, are any of them making a living, or do they need second jobs?
Most of them do need second jobs. However, we are one of the few theaters in the country that pays all of our improv actors. That is a very rare thing. I would say 99% of the improvisers out there do not get paid.
That's why I asked, because it's like, how do they survive? Because again, the struggling actors, struggling artists, we struggle to find our passion and still continue it without being interrupted by reality and having to go and flip burgers.
Right, exactly. And we're happy. I'm happy that we're able to assist some of our aspiring artists, like the ones that are working towards a full-time.
So where would you say, since with us growing and everything, it's a good place to stay too. So, but the big cities, which ones do you said Chicago and New York? You didn't mention Boston.
No, Boston's a great stand-up city. If you're a stand-up comedian, I would say go to Boston. For improv, I think it's a good next step. If somebody from Sarasota were looking to move to another city and they weren't sure if they wanted to go to Chicago, New York, or LA, I would say Boston is a good mid-level city. It's a great improv scene with some really nice opportunities.
And Chicago would be at the top of the list,
tier,
yes?
yeah. I mean,
they've got Second City and
Chicago is still considered the mecca of modern contemporary improvisation, but the scenes in New York and LA are growing, especially because those are the ones that are feeding into.
Now, a lot of improv actors really, well, they're excellent at that. It's a great ground to learn the art of acting.
Yes.
I mean, if you can do improv, then you could probably, as long as you can memorize your scripts, you're going to have what you need to be a great actor or actress.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I would say that my acting training came from improvisation. I mean, and then I started to take more traditional acting classes.
The ones where I've talked to a few actors and actresses already, and they have different methods that you're supposed to learn this method, or you're supposed to learn that method.
Yep.
And improv is totally different from either of those.
Right. We and even within improv, we have our own methods. Whether you study Doug Close method, or the Annoyance, or Keith Johnstone, or Viola Spolin, they all have different approaches to the same that are trying to achieve this state of spontaneous theater.
Give me an idea of the difference between those different methods, because I'm sure our audience doesn't have a clue.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, one of the more popular ones. One of the more popular ones right now is the Upright Citizens Brigade out of New York, and they base their improv off of a form called the Herald, which originally was born out of Chicago. The Herald is a long form that is dependent on pattern work and group mind. And within that, what the Upright Citizens Brigade teaches is the idea of finding the game. So in your improv work, you have to find the game. You have to find the unusual thing in the scene and base your scene off of that unusual thing. And that unusual thing might be it might be an accent, it might be a weird thing that the character said, right? And then you dig into that to find the larger game of the scene. Whereas somewhere like Improv Olympic, where Del Close used to be artistic director, it's all about the relationship. It's all about like, okay, what your emotion, if you come out with an emotion, I need to respond with what is a very genuine emotion towards that emotion. And those two emotions together are the relationship of the scene, and what the scene is going to be grounded in, this relationship. Okay, Viola Spolin did, or Keith Johnstone does a lot of status work. His scenes.
What does that mean?
His scenes look for the comedy in status. So whether, look for, here's a high status character, here's a low status character, right? What is that dynamic? How does that dynamic affect the conversation and the relationship and the arc of the scene?
A snooty person coming across a homeless person.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And he plays a lot off of the dynamic of status. So all of these different schools of thought are trying. They're all looking for the truth.
And they're pulling out the emotions.
Yeah, emotions are always very important.
That's the main thing in improv, right? For us to see, because
right.
if you're not hitting that, then you're not really acting.
Right.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
So, where you have classes still, you train all the time, correct?
We do. Yep.
And are these classes relatively affordable?
I would say they are. I mean, I would say compared to adult education class I've been teaching elsewhere, they are very affordable. We're talking about 16 hours at about just under $200, which works out to $10 to $15 an hour.
That's very reasonable.
Yeah, and there's additional. We give you free tickets to shows on top of that, so there's even more perks. And you two at least.
And considering
tickets.
what tickets cost nowadays.
Right. And we give you 2 free $15 tickets to our Saturday night shows. And I think just the opportunity to be involved in this community is, which I'm working to grow and expand.
I know, and you're going to be a large part, I think, of the whole, the melding together of different components here in the acting, film, play, all of that community.
That's my hope.
I think you will be, because you've already managed to hit a bunch of the different ones that I've met you at. And your name is coming up in conversations quite often. Good. So, how can people get a hold of you if they want to know more about joining improv or seeing improv, whichever floats their boat?
Sure. The easiest ways would be my mobile phone, which is 617-840-5604, and also through email, which is WLUERA@FloridaStudioTheater.
Spelled out?
Florida Studio, and then theater is spelled THEATRE.org. And I also have a website, Luera.com.
And spell that Luera, because
LUERA.com.
Willuera.com.
Yeah.
All right, so hopefully we will have some people contacting you, and
that'd be great.
I hope that Minnesota Films or somebody associated with Minnesota Films puts together something that is a central center for everybody connected with the film industry, the acting industry, just all of the components that we have.
Yes.
Even artists that make sense.
Yeah.
And we've got some new production studios opening up all over the place, so this should be a lot of fun.
I look forward to meeting and working with more local artists, and I think just the one thing that improv has taught me is about the power of collaboration, and I think that bringing together people that have never worked together to create something new is always a lot of fun. And so if there's anyone who wants to reach out to me to work on something, please get in touch.
And thank you for being at Culture Coast.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Village of the Arts, the largest artist colony in the state of Florida, located on 42 acres, includes artists, homes, galleries, gardens, and restaurants featuring handcrafted gifts, fine art sculptures, painting, photography, enviro art, healing arts, books, mystics, and musical variety. A few of the galleries are unique in their offerings. Village Voices specializes in books and art created exclusively by Florida residents. The Dancing Crane Gallery offers fine art, custom jewelry, and unique innovative art. The Village Mystic offers all things metaphysical: meditation, massage, mediums, aromatherapy, psychics, shamans, Reiki healing, and the gem mine, where you can mine for your own personal treasure. Yoga Arts offers classes or one-on-one coaching. Musicians and bands can be found throughout the area. Many of the artists and musicians offer classes. Restaurants and bakeries provide respite for the weary and magic for the foodies. Visit during the first Friday Art Walk and stroll through the shops and galleries enjoying free appetizers, wine, music, and demonstrations. For hours and information, please visit the website at www.villageofthearts.com.